From welcome and from prehistoric to present, my name is Ethan. This is Creature Guide Live Daily News. You can catch new episodes at Creature Guide Live on Rumble and YouTube. Now, let's get into the animals of the day. We're going to start off with an article by outdoors.com. Oh, whoops. That's the last one. We're going to start off with an article by IFL Science. So this occurred. Watch rare white orca spotted swimming with pod off coast of Japan. Yes. So during the summer months, especially from May to July, you have it where somewhere around 2 to 3,000 orcas will arrive in the northern shores, around the northern shores of the Shirtoko Peninsula of Hokkaido, Japan. So this is the northern island and to feed as well as give birth in these regions. I mean, sorry, not to birth, to breed. There's something very fake about this picture. Unless it's just me, it looks like almost a picture of the moon, but it's in the shape of an orca. Oh no. This condition is not thought to cause any ill effects to the whales. It does occur. White orcas are quite rare, but they do occur. But this picture is a bit unsettling. Some places on Earth are home to remarkable sights, from the gates of hell to caves that hold the only known population of some fish. They have the power to captivate and often keep people returning year after year. Among them is Rashu on the Shirtoko Peninsula in Hokkaido, Japan. If you are here at the right time, you might just be able to see the killer whales migrating. For En Hayakawa, the impressive spectacle of the orcas migrating has kept him coming back to this area. According to Studio Persol, he now spends 40 to 50 days here every year. Alongside, well, that's partially because that's in some cases close to half of the time that the orcas are spending in that part of Japan. Some individuals will migrate a bit further south to some more southern islands of Japan, at least compared to Hokkaido. The orcas are also going to be feeding on different species of salmon within the region that will um, migrate to the streams of the Hokkaido island, especially around the Shirtoko Peninsula. This is also the region on the island that's very famous for their brown bear population. And they will also occasionally feed on the different harbor and spotted seals within Japan. There is a species of Japanese seal that is extinct, though, but the harbor and spotted seals are quite common there. Alongside the impressive power of the orcas traveling through the waves, Hayakawa spotted something else this year. Among the pod was a white orca. Different color morphs of all kinds of species are surprisingly common, from all white bats to all black penguins. Genetics play a huge role in determining which colors are expressed. The orca spotted in Japan is thought to be leucistic, devoid of pigment in certain areas. This is not the same as albino, which also causes changes to the eyes. Oh, okay, so supposedly, oh, it's not finished. Well, if this is true, this is just simply a white orca, and it's not an albino. This was the first white killer whale I've encountered in 15 years of photographing killer whales in Rasu, wrote Hayakawa on the social media platform. While people on social media platforms have been suggesting the images and videos of the orcas are fake or even AI generated, Hayakawa says the images and videos have not been retouched. Orcas in Japan are not the only known white individuals, as Frosty the orca occasionally pops up off the coast of California to show his similar coloration. There have been many named animals in recent years, and I'm not talking about instances where it's something like um, Grizzly 399 or the Cougar P22. Both animals have passed, but they were, I'd say Grizzly 99 was the beginning of like the just era of famous wild animals. Because in most cases, you might have a certain individual or two that was well known with certain celebrities, but nowadays there are so many. I'm not familiar with Frosty the Orca. Um, I'm just gonna scroll up to the picture. It just doesn't look authentic. Okay, well, let me know what your thoughts are on the white orcas arriving in Japan. They do occur here. It's just this specific picture seems off. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now, let's dive into the next article by the Indian Defense Review. Matching 240 million year old dinosaur footprints found on both sides of the Atlantic. Matching dinosaur footprints found on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean are rewriting history. Well, these look very well preserved. Oh, yeah. I've seen theropod tracks that look very similar to this in earlier Triassic impressions. 5 centimeters. This definitely isn't a small animal for the time. 200, 240. Oh, that wasn't hitting me. 240 million years ago. This would be definitely the earliest dinosaur that we know of. Fascinating discovery spanning millions of years has emerged as researchers have uncovered more than 260 matching dinosaur tracks on opposite sides of the Atlantic Ocean. This revelation not only sheds light on ancient migration paths, but also offers critical insights into the breakup of the supercontinent Gondwana. The tracks preserved in what is now northern Cameroon. Okay, so these were found in Western Africa. You could say central, but um, so just southeast of Nigeria. And what is now northern Cameroon and northeastern Brazil. Have provided scientists with remarkable evidence of an ancient connection between Africa and South America. The discovery was detailed in a study led by paleontologist Louis L. Jacobs and his team, published by the New Mexico Museum of Natural History and Science. The study of dinosaur footprints found in the Kum Basin of Cameroon and the Borborema region of Brazil have opened a new chapter in paleontological research. These two sites, located over 3,700 miles apart, are preserved snapshots of a time when Africa and South America were still part of the same landmass, referring to Pangaea. Th- This early Cretaceous landscape, which existed about 120 million years ago. Oh, um, my bad. I was confusing it with the Triassic incident. Was a lush and vibrant environment where large plant-eating dinosaurs and their predators roamed freely across expansive river valleys and wetlands. Geologists have identified these areas as part of a once continuous corridor called the Dinosaur Dispersal Corridor, through which dinosaurs migrated between the continents. This corridor, formed by river valleys, allowed species to move easily between the lands now separated by vast oceans. The evidence found in both regions, including the remarkably preserved tracks and surrounding sediments, suggests that dinosaurs traversed this bridge just before it was engulfed by the rising South Atlantic Ocean. Um, it is interesting, though. They're not mentioning any specimens that might have been found around these tracks. There are certain instances where there have been different dinosaur footprints that have been discovered from a variety of different time periods. So, whether you're talking different parts of the Cretaceous, Jurassic, or Triassic, but there weren't any specimens of dinosaurs near them. Um, In their geological and plate tectonic contexts, they were also similar. In terms of their shapes, they are almost identical, explained Louis Jacobs, highlighting the striking similarities between the dinosaur tracks found in both basins. This discovery reinforces the idea that the two landmasses were once part of a single, interconnected ecosystem. The footprints found at both sites often or offer compelling evidence that the dinosaurs were living in similar environments, walking on similar landscapes, and leaving nearly identical marks in the soft mud. Yeah, they are very well preserved. So he's possibly walking in some sort of a floodplain or um, possibly some sort of a swamp. Hasn't gone into too much detail on what the ecosystem might have looked like. I'm not very familiar with this specific basin, the Coombe Basin in northern Cameroon. The findings from Cameroon and Brazil provide more than just a glimpse of dinosaur life. They also offer a detailed look at the ecosystems that supported these creatures. The dinosaur footprints are preserved in ancient floodplain deposits. Okay, so these two theropods were walking in a floodplain. And this is I'm mentioning because this is a very distinct footprint that you'd find from this lineage of dinosaurs, not something that you'd find in animals like the ornithopods or the sauropods. Well, okay, I can be off on the ornithopods because certain individuals, actually many, could be bipedal. But the thing is, it's the distinct narrow shape that you see in these different footprints. And the claw endings, this looks much more theropod like. See, where was I? Okay. Where muddy sediments were left behind by rivers and lakes that once crisscrossed the landscape. These river valleys, with their abundant water sources and lush vegetation, were ideal habitats for both herbivores and carnivores. As Jacob points out, rivers flowed and lakes formed in the basins. Plants fed the herbivores and supported the food chain. Obviously. The description provides a detailed picture of a thriving ecosystem where life flourished across the land bridge between Africa and South America. The presence of footprints from various species indicates that these river valleys served as natural highways, allowing both plant eaters and meat eaters to roam freely. In the ancient river valleys, muddy sediments left by the rivers and lakes have also preserved tracks from meat eating dinosaurs. Muddy sediments left by the rivers and lakes contain dinosaur footprints, including those of meat eaters, documenting that these river valleys could provide specific avenues for life to travel across the continents 120 million years ago. Jacobs added, so I'm a bit confused. Were those footprints from the Triassic layer, or are they specifically Cretaceous? Because it seems to be that these are early Cretaceous theropod footprints. This discovery not only paints a picture of a thriving prehistoric ecosystem, but also demonstrates how rivers and lakes acted as vital corridors for migration during a period of significant geographical change. These extraordinary discoveries help to fill in the gaps of our understanding of the breakup of the supercontinent Gondwana. Around 140 million years ago, Gondwana began to fragment due to tectonic forces, and the South Atlantic Ocean slowly began to open up. During the early stages of this rifting, however, a narrow land bridge remained, connecting what is now northern Cameroon to northeastern Brazil. The dinosaur tracks found in both regions preserve a moment in time just before the continents drifted apart completely. So, what else do we have? Oh, it's another one. This looks like something you'd find from some ornithopod dinosaur. The very wide expansion of the toes. I understand when the animal is making an impression in the mud, it might leave a slightly wider impression than the toe itself. Even when it comes to the palm, but it wouldn't be by too much. This is mentioning that it's a theropod footprint from Susa Basin in the Lower Cretaceous of northeastern Brazil. I'm guessing this is supposed to be somewhere around 130 million years ago. Geez, that is a wide footprint. I wonder what's giving you the indication of it being a theropod dinosaur. I was really guessing some maybe species of iguanodontid at this point. Hmm. This finding is crucial for understanding the dynamics of continental drift, as it provides direct evidence of life in an environment that will later be submerged by the Atlantic. Paleontologists have long speculated about the movement of species across this ancient landmass, but these footprints offer the first concrete proof that dinosaurs moved between Africa and South America during a period when the two continents were still physically connected. The discovery of the dinosaur dispersal corridor not only deepens our understanding of prehistoric migration patterns, but also adds critical details to the history of Earth's shifting continents. It underscores the complexity of the breakup of Gondwana and the role it played in shaping the modern world. This is partially what happens. Actually, it's happened to me a lot where I'll be looking at certain modern day animal footprints. And sometimes it's not too hard to confuse something like a possum footprint with the raccoon footprint if you're not consistently looking at their distinct footprints. Also, even looking at the shape of their feet, or you're looking at different species of crocodile, or you're looking at different caimans. It can happen with theropods and ornithopods. Now, there have been instances where they claimed, or certain paleontologists claimed that a set of footprints belonged to an ornithopod, and then later on, more detailed analysis was done on the footprints and turned out to be a theropod. So I think you might still be a bit of a at this point with this track. And like I said, with the other footprints, there isn't any mention of specimens that have been found with this theropod footprints. Um, yeah, it is a bit of a question as to like what even specific theropod, if it is, would have created this. And if it was at this point, you had quite a few decently sized theropods within the region. If this is the early Cretaceous sediment, but this might have been a juvenile. Question is like how thick is that blade of grass? Okay, well, let me know what your thoughts are on the mostly Cretaceous footprints. I'm still confused as to which ones might have been Triassic. 'Cause that got me hyped. I'm like, that would be the oldest dinosaur that we know of. Probably, I'm guessing it might have been the more narrow, distinct theropod footprints further up in the article. But thank you for joining Creature Guy Live. Now let's dive into the next article by AFL Science. Critically endangered Upemba leshwe officially photographed for the first time. The ultra rare antelope is thought to be on the brink of extinction. Okay, here it is. The Leshwe, there's around 3 different species of Leshwe antelope. These animals are relatives of the waterbuck, and they can reach somewhere around 350 to 400 pounds. Just looking at the males, and the males do score horns. Tend to be a bit rigid and have a bit of a curve. Also a bit distinct from the waterbuck's horns. Waterbuck horns tend to be a bit straighter. These also are a bit of a semi-aquatic antelope. For the first time ever, researchers have published a pho- ugh, photograph of a living Upemba leshwe, which is Cobus anselli, a rarely spotted species of antelope that a new survey suggests is on the brink of extinction. Oh, the Upemba species. That wasn't hitting me. I'm like, why do I know this, but it's not hitting me? Okay, so the Upemba, it's extremely rare. There might only be somewhere between 800 to 1,000 of these antelope. But if you look at the red leshwe, there's around 76,000 of wait, no, am I thinking of them? I was thinking of, sable antelope. Um, I believe with the, red leshwere, somewhere around 76,000 of those antelope. And then other species, pretty much the same number, maybe a couple thousand less with the estimates. The photo was captured during an aerial survey of the Kamalondo Depression, a large region of sunken land in the south of the Democratic Republic of the Congo. So this is in Central Africa, and the only place on the planet where the Upemba Leshwa is thought to live. There are certain parts, if you walk or migrate right out of the Congo Basin or the different Congo rainforests, some of them are not necessarily rainforests, but they have a dry and a wet season, and especially different parts of Angola, I believe certain parts of Cameroon. But in the regions just outside of those ecosystems, you have an abundant area of marshes, which is where you tend to find certain populations of not just Leshwe antelope, but even the forest buffalo subspecies. Some have confused the forest buffalo with a distinct species of Cape buffalo, and that is not true. Partially because these animals have a very distinct look from the Savannah Cape buffalo subspecies, and they only get to about 900 pounds, and they have like a brownish, sort of orange coating. Um, it's the only place on the planet where the Upemba Leshwe is thought to live. It was in the morning of the second day that a single individual stopped for just a few seconds, long enough for me to press the trigger, before running off like the other individuals we have seen. Lead author Manuel Weber of Upemba National Park's Department of Research and Biomonitoring. So this took place in Upemba National Park in the Congo. What Weber managed to capture is believed to be the first published photographic record of a living member of the species since it was first described back in 2005. Before then, the Upemba leshwe was hiding in plain sight. The museum specimens used to describe it were collected all the way back in the 1920s and 40s. Wondering um, when the estimate of the 800 to 1,000 took place. The survey of the species conducted by Weber and colleagues is also the first carried out in over 50 years, and the results don't bode well for the future. Is the number that we have currently for the Upemba Leshwe 50 years old or older? Jeesh. Okay. Now this isn't the only antelope in the region. You do have the rare bongo that exists in the Congo. It's very rare to come upon. There might be somewhere between 5 to 12,000 in the wild. And the most common antelope within these areas are actually quite small. They're different members of the Duker antelopes. So these are very small antelopes. They get to about 20 to 30 pounds. And in some cases, you could almost say they almost look like a mouse deer. But in some cases, certain species, there's over 700,000 individuals. Actually, there's a couple of Dukers that have a population of somewhere around 7 to 8 million. Possibly the blue duker, but they're not semi-aquatic. They tend to just inhabit different parts of the rainforest. But well, it's good to know that it exists. Um, oh, is there more? This is a species on the very brink, said Weber in a statement. While the IUCN currently estimates that there are somewhere between 600 to 1,000 mature Pemba leshwe, the survey recorded just 10 individuals. What? Using that figure, the authors estimate that the number of Upemba leshwe remaining in the area is instead likely fewer than 100. That's not good. Um, They recorded 10 and claim there's could be 600 to 1,000. I'm guessing they put that number up there just to give them higher hopes for the animal's return. Jeez. This species faces imminent extinction, writes the authors, because of poaching. Yeah, that tends to be the main cause for animals in the Congo. It's not usually environmental or habitat destruction. It's just the poaching is pretty bad. The only ones that tend to do better are the dukers because they're so numerous. Tend to be quite secretive. Back in the early 1970s, aerial surveys suggested that anywhere between 5,000 to 20,000 leshwe could be found in the Kamalando Depression. Wonder if this was a different species. However, in the 1980s, measures designed to protect the antelopes in Upemba National Park, which is found within the depression, declined. That's wonder what occurred. The authors report that as a result, Leshwin numbers rapidly declined, while poaching for their meat became prolific. To stop the species from being wiped out entirely, Weber and colleagues call for protective measures to be reinstated immediately. The fact that they're still hanging on at all is extraordinary, but without urgent protection, they'll vanish, said Weber. It's hoped that this new photo will bring attention to the plight of the species and spur on rapid conservation action. We hope this image becomes a rallying cry, Weber added, because this may be our only chance to save this species. Great. Now we got another vaquita dolphin situation, except the Upemba might have a bit of, um, might have a bit more of a chance at surviving compared to the vaquita dolphin. If you wanted to relocate them, maybe hybridize them with other species. Now, I don't like hybridizing, but just keeping their genetics out there. So that was it. Hmm. Yes, the Upemba leshwe do feed on a variety of different species of aquatic plants, especially different types of more seasonal flood grasses. Not exactly the same ones that you find in the Okavango Delta over in northern Botswana, which there are red leshwe in that region, which are much more numerous. And you tend to find 20 to 30 leshwe at least in a herd. So finding 10 at once, that was back in the 70s, is not good. Yeah, sheesh. Okay, well, I'm glad it's still alive. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Upemba lechwe antelope, and thank you for watching Creature Guide Live. Now let's dive into the next article by Texas Geosciences. Rare bird skull from the age of dinosaurs helps illuminate avian evolution. An artist's interpretation of Vigavis Iae diving for fish in the shallow ocean off the coast of the Antarctic Peninsula, with ammonites and plesiosaurs for company. So I'm guessing this is Vigavis. This looks like a member of the Hesperonodontidae lineage of avian dinosaurs. And this group would eventually go extinct towards the end of the Cretaceous around 66 million years ago. And they were mostly aquatic. So they spent much of their time in the ocean and probably preyed on a variety of smaller species of fish. They did have a semi penguin like beak, but hosted distinct conical teeth. Probably didn't inhabit very cool waters. And it's possible certain interpretations of the Hesperonodontids have depicted them as swimming in what would you call that? Just simply underwater flocks and just preying on simply smaller fish, not usually going after things like ammonites and definitely not going after even younger plesiosaurs or different marine reptiles within the region. They might prey on smaller birds that happen to come. to dive into the water and seek out the same fish that they're hunting. A new study in Nature describing a fossil of a nearly complete and intact bird skull from Antarctica is shedding light on the early evolution of today's birds and avian diversity at the end of the age of dinosaurs. This skull, the skull is from Vigavus IA, an extinct duck-like bird that lived during the late Cretaceous, just before non-avian dinosaurs went extinct. It's one of very few 3D bird skulls known to science from the Cretaceous. Vigavus is among the best known bird species from this era. There are multiple fossils of this bird, including the oldest known fossil bird vocal organ. But research on the new skull and the shape of the brain inside it isn't only helping scientists learn more about this particular extinct bird species, but the origins and evolution of birds that are still living today. Hmm. Wonder if they're going to mention anything about possibly being closer or closely related to certain birds today, despite going extinct. There are very few brains to illuminate this phase of avian evolution, said Chris Torres, an assistant professor at the University of the Pacific, who led the study. Torres conducted the research as a National Science Foundation postdoctoral fellow at Ohio University. And, okay, Julia Clark. I've heard of that scientist. Digital reconstruction of a Vigavus IA skull that was scanned at the University of Texas high resolution X-ray computed tomography facility at the Jackson School of Geosciences. Looks good. Um, so here we have the bomb jaw. It is interesting. You can tell distinctively that this is a dinosaur because here's the anorbital fenestra at the middle of the skull. This is also what part of what classifies a dinosaur is its distinctive two holes on their skull. And here's a smaller mandibular fenestra. I don't think it's supposed to be this right here, but every single bird today has these two distinct characteristics. So this is not the nostril. The nostril would be somewhere towards the front. And um, besides that, I mean, that is quite neat how much of the skull they're able to obtain from just a sliver of the whole specimen. The new study is the latest in a long list of Vicavus discoveries by Clark. She and colleagues identified and named the species in 2005, working with a specimen that was discovered on Antarctica's Vega Island in 1992. The specimen was the first example of a direct relative of modern birds from the late Cretaceous and served as evidence that living bird relatives and their non avian dinosaur cousins coexisted. In 2016, Clark and other collaborators discovered a fossilized syrinx, a bird vocal organ, in different Vigavus specimens. And in 2011, she was part of the fossil finding mission to Antarctica, where the skull was discovered by study co author and geologist Eric Roberts, a professor at the Colorado School of Mines. When Clark identified Vigavus, she determined that it was closely related to modern ducks and geese and could be categorized in an evolutionary group called the Anseriformes that encompasses both types of birds. Yeah, so there were a variety of different Anseriformes that have been discovered also in different coastal regions throughout the earth towards the, or let me phrase that, throughout the late Cretaceous period. Most of them most likely feeding on a variety of some feeding on smaller species of saltwater fish, others probably having a much more flamingo-like lifestyle and feeding on a variety of microscopic shrimp, possibly in different soda lakes that existed back then, and smaller organisms that inhabited the area. And you had others that were probably feeding on a variety of different small aquatic insects like ducks do today. But since then, other researchers have suggested that Vigavus is much more distantly related to most bird lineages today. Few birds are as likely to start as many arguments among paleontologists as Vigavus, said Torres. But answering the question of where Vigavis lands on the tree of life isn't just a technical point of discussion between paleontologists. It can help answer a big open question in bird evolution. Did it take the demise of non avian dinosaurs for modern birds to diversify into the many lineages still with us today? Or was this diversification already well underway during the age of dinosaurs? Also, what role, if any, did the asteroid impact the end of the Cretaceous have on modern birds in their diversification? Thanks to this new study, the researchers have confidently found a taxonomic home for Vigavis. Its broad collection of anatomical traits keeps it in the Anseriformis group, as Clark previously hypothesized. This outcome suggests that the earliest diverging modern bird lineages were evolving alongside non avian dinosaurs. Um, yes, there is evidence for a variety of different modern bird lineages that existed at the end of the Cretaceous, along with the variety of avian dinosaurs. So, other families of birds that existed during not just the late Cretaceous, but even into the early Cretaceous and over into the Jurassic, especially certain more famous groups like the Uantiornithins, and some even possess like a single claw around the middle of their wing. Completely feathered. These animals did have the ability to fly. Um, but for some reason, many of these different distinct families of birds ended up going extinct at the end of the Cretaceous, despite many of them being quite small. Some cases, like as small as today's sparrows or even some pigeons, yet they ended up dying out. I think it makes a bit more sense for the much more aquatic ones, especially the Hesperonodontids, because they simply had to stay towards the surface. And I think the animals in the ocean that could survive at much deeper depths probably also didn't have to come to the surface to breathe, had a much better chance of surviving that extinction. Um, its placement came as a bit of a surprise, according to the researchers. That's because the Vigavis skull has some decidedly unduck like features, most notably a long spear shaped beak. Yeah, I always thought it was much more similar to like something like a penguin. I think it gave some people pause, Clark said. They expected the skull to be more duck or goose like. Clark notes that the ducks and geese of today are just a small selection of the inseriform birds that have lived over time. There are examples from the fossil record of duck like birds that had lifestyles akin to today's herons and flamingos. Bigavis and its distinctive beak underscore the diversity of duck like birds that once walked the earth. Hmm. In the past, they were weird and wonderful, Clark said. We have this huge range of now extinct and seriform birds, and Vigavis is consistent with that. The study also highlights the value of deeply researching a single species. Whoa, is this the amount of the specimen that they've discovered? That is very intact. Oh, wait a second. I thought that was what the CT scan was able to recover from, like a sliver of the back of the skull. I didn't realize that that was based on what they had found. Um, that's really good. Much um, neck vertebra, basically, or most of the rib cage, much of the arms, exterior of the body. Well, not the exterior, towards the back, thigh bone, very long shin bone. Um, Part of the ankle bone's quite long too. This was definitely a quick runner. Also, some Hesperornithins, many could walk on land. They were just possibly quite clumsy, but with this type of a physique, I would expect it to be quite nimble on the land. So even quite speedy. Fossils of Animals and plants from this time in Antarctica are extremely rare, leading to many more questions about the nature of the environments in which birds and other life forms originated and diversified. Something very different seems to have been happening in the far reaches of the southern hemisphere, specifically Antarctica, said O'Connor. This requires a much closer look into the fossil record and the changing environments of this region through time. Okay, well, it's interesting that they found complete Vigavis, but there's not a whole lot I can say about these specific dinosaurs, um, specifically like the different Anseriformans. So let me know what your thoughts are on Vigavis within the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. Now let's go on to the next article by Outdoors.com. Let's see. Looks like rare jaguarundi pair captured on trail cam in Honduras. So this is a species of cat. Jaguarundis usually reach somewhere around 15 to 17 inches in length and can reach about 15 pounds, specifically with the males. They tend to hunt a variety of like smaller amphibians, reptiles, occasionally different species of rodents. They'll even go after different species of spiders, and they can become quite arboreal. You can find them. They're rare, but they do occur occasionally in South Texas. But they're most common throughout different savanna, marsh, and even forested areas of Mexico, down to the different countries of Central America, and through a variety of different lush parts of South America. So you can find them as far south as different areas of southern Brazil. These small cats are quite mysterious and secretive, but a trail cam in Honduras captured footage of a jaguarundi pair in the wild. Footage shows two jaguarundis up close, walking and sitting in front of the camera. Eh, I don't think it's it. Panthera, a conservation organization dedicated to wildcats and their landscapes, shared the rare jaguarundi footage back in 2022. Yeah, Panthera's um, dedicates conservation to pretty much every wildcat species. Also called shadow cats, jaguarundis apparently make 13 different calls. Huh, didn't know this, including purring, whistling, chirping. That I did. Scientists know relatively little. Who doesn't know that a cat purrs? Whistling, I could see. Um, Chirping, most know that. Okay. Scientists know relatively little about them, making footage like this very valuable. So here they are in Honduras. These are also not members of Panthera. They're actually they belong to a different genus of felidae, or of the um, order of cats, and they're actually much more closely related to the cougar. In fact, the cougar is actually its most closest relative, and they're not too distantly related to the cheetah. Oh, is that it? Oh, oh. Okay, well, it's nice to see a jaguarundi out in the jungles of Honduras. Let me know what your thoughts are on the jaguarundi in the comments, and thank you for joining Creature Guy Live. So let's jump into the next article by SciTech Daily. Paleontologists uncover 465 million year old secret, the true purpose of the first teeth. So this is taking place during the Silurian period. So this is around um this is earlier in the Phanerozoic era. So somewhere around the time of the Devonian. I'm guessing this is supposed to be early Devonian because um no, not Devonian, Silurian, but I don't know, that might only go to around 450 million years ago. So um this could be late Ordovician. I haven't spent a lot of time recently in the Silurian or Ordovician period. So this is around what 200 and no, but I'm thinking amount of time before the dinosaurs. Um, what 465? So one, two. It's about 225 million years, 225, 230 million years before the first dinosaur evolved. So here in the ocean, which is where pretty much all animals existed at this point, you have a variety of different types of predators and even herbivores that lived in the oceans, especially this fish on the bottom. This is a member of the placoderm family, which is known for consisting of many species of different armored fishes. And I say fishes because I'm relating to different species of fish. Um, Whereas I just say there's a school of a certain species of fish. And then here you have the Eurypterids. Now, these are known as basically the sea scorpions of the Silurian period. And not let me phrase that. Late Ordovician, then the Silurian, the Devonian, Carboniferous, and the Permian. So Eurypterids, they tend to be left out, especially the smaller species. The largest ones could reach somewhere around 8 feet. And these animals, so far, it doesn't look like there's any evidence for them having venom, unlike today's modern scorpions. Also, modern scorpions belong to the clade um and of was it or was it arachnidae? And sea scorpions belong to a completely different type of clade. Now, both modern day scorpions, and then the Eurypterids of the oceans of the Silurian period, they both belong to the clade Chelopatra, and then both are members of Arthropodae, Arthropodae, along with every single species of insect today. So these are related to today's insects. They're just a bit off in the family tree. Oh, okay. So here we have the placoderm astraspis, and this is the famous Megalograptus. So there were most Eurypterids fully reached a length of somewhere around 3 feet. So that was their average size, whereas Megalograptus was quite large. And they would have fed on a variety of different placoderm fish. New fossil research shows that teeth originally evolved as sensory tissue embedded in the armored exoskeletons of ancient fish. Anyone who has ever squirmed through a dental cleaning knows how sensitive teeth can be. Wouldn't compare these teeth to primate teeth, but okay. This sensitivity provides important feedback about temperature, pressure, and pain as we bite and chew. Oh, I see where they're getting at. However, the sensitive tissues inside hard enamel originally evolved for a different purpose. New research from the University of Chicago shows that dentine, the inner layer of teeth that transmits sensory information to the nerves in the pulp, first evolved as sensory tissue in the armored skeletons of ancient fish. Paleontologists have long believed that the teeth evolved from the bumpy structures found on this armor, but the purpose of those structures remained unclear. A new study published in Nature confirms that these features in an early vertebrate fish from the Ordovician period. Yeah, okay, so this is late Ordovician. About 465 million years ago, contained dentine and likely helped the animal detect conditions in the surrounding water. So here's a placoderm. This is a species of trilobite. So trilobites existed from the Cambrian over 520 million years ago. and then eventually going extinct around the same time as the Eurypterids did, around 250 million years ago, at the end of the Permian. So you had very successful aquatic lineages of animals such as the Eurypterids, the trilobites, and for some reason just ended up vanishing at the end of the Permian. And then here you have a crab-like animal, the Neopetrolisthes. So is this looking at their teeth nerves? Tooth nerves? Ancient vertebrate fish, ancient arthropods, modern day arthropods. Oh, that's from today. Okay, I don't know that species of crab. Um, had convergent structures on their exoskeletons that are connected to nerves that allow the animals to sense their environment. Oh, okay. I don't think this is referring to their teeth, just their sensitive, hair-like structures. The researchers also revealed that structures previously identified as teeth in fossils from the Cambrian period, which ranged from 540 to 485 million years ago. The timeline might be a bit off. Um, Possible as early as 545 million years ago. Closely resembled features in the armor of fossil invertebrates, as well as the sensory organs found in the shells of modern arthropods, such as crabs and shrimp. These similarities suggest that sensory organs in the armor of both vertebrates and invertebrates evolved independently to help animals perceive their environment. When you think about an early animal like this, swimming around with armor on it, it needs to sense the world. This was a pretty intense predatory environment, and being able to sense the properties of the water around them would have been very important, said Neil Shubin. So here we see that invertebrates with armor, like horseshoe crabs, need to sense the world too. And it just so happens they hit on the same solution. Yeah. That's horseshoe crabs. They've been around for at least 380 million years. So they've been around since the Devonian. A variety of different species of horseshoe crab have been found, even different Mesozoic layers. So they might have been a food source for certain coastal dinosaurs during the Mesozoic. Yara Haridi, PhD, postdoctoral researcher in Shubin's lab, who led the study, did not set out to investigate the origins of teeth. Instead, she was focused on answering another long-standing question in paleontology. What is the earliest vertebrate in the fossil record? To explore this, Hardy contacted museums across the country, requesting fossil specimens from the Cambrian period so she could CT scan them in search of signs that indicated what? So she could CT scan them in search of signs that indicated vertebrate features. That sounds really fun. So this is a CT scan image of tooth-like dermal denticles on a cat shark. Okay, so this is a species of shark distantly related to today's sharks, but you would have found certain species like this even into the Mesozoic. And it's called a cat tooth or a cat shark because it's got a cuter face compared to other sharks. These tooth-like structures are connected to the nervous system, suggesting they create sensation. One of those signs, at least in later fish, is the presence of dentine inside the bumps on external armor, called ond- ondototus. This specific feature also gives different genre of sharks during the Silurian, Devonian eras their distinct names, even certain families. Hardy collected hundreds of specimens, some just tiny fragments that could fit on the end of a toothpick. Okay, it sounded really fun at first, but since it's talking about small specimens of sharks, it would just be more fun on like certain larger mammals or dinosaurs, at least for me. I still like sharks. They're just a lot of mostly teeth are discovered. She then took them to Argonne National Laboratory for an all-night scanning session using the advanced photon source, which captured extremely high-resolution CT images of the fossils. It was a night at the particle accelerator. That was fun, Hardy said. Segmented confocal scan of the tooth-like odontode structure from suckermouth catfish fish, sho- showing nerves. The nerves are in green that allow transmission of sensory information from the tooth-like odontode to the nervous system. Hmm. As they started seeing the images from the scans, one of the samples from a Cambrian fossil called Anatopolis looked like it showed the hallmarks of a vertebrate fish. It had a series of tubules or pores underneath the odontodes filled with material that bore the chemical signatures of dentine. If it truly was a vertebrate, this specimen would have extended the fossil record back by tens of millions of years. There's a lot more stuff coming up, not just with possibly earlier species of dinosaurs, but with this, just vertebrates themselves coming out. So this is it's really good to hear. We were high-fiving each other like, "Oh my god, we finally did it." Already said that would have been the very first tooth-like structure in vertebrate tissues from the Cambrian. Oh, 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 I forgot we were talking about the Cambrian. So focused on the Silurian, I mean the late Ordovician sea scorpion that I forgot we were even discussing something else. So also there weren't any Eurypterids by this point. You would have had certain squid-like creatures called the arthrocones, so a different variety of cephalopods, in the oceans. Not ammonites. Ammonites wouldn't have evolved till the Devonian, somewhere around 375 million years ago. So we were pretty excited when we saw the telltale signs of what looked like dentine. They had to confirm this, of course, so they began analyzing images of the other specimens already scanned. This library of shells and skeletons included everything from other ancient fossils to modern crabs, snails, beetles, barnacles, sharks, and skates. Jeez, wow. Wait a second. Oh, I was thinking like they found all these different organisms in a fossil formation, but I'm like, this is the Cambrian. You wouldn't have found beetles or um, anything close to modern snails, sharks, modern modern crabs. Okay, I was just talking about the collection she had. Plus miniature suckermouth catfish that Hardy raised herself in an aquarium. That's funny. This is a CT scan of the tooth-like odonte structure from Astrapsis. So this is that placoderm fish that the Eurypterid's hunting in the picture. In ancient jawless vertebrate fish, the tubules, shown in green, are filled with dentine, the same material that makes up the sensitive inner layer of modern teeth. In red is the vascular system, which would have housed the nerves in life, allowing for sensation to be transmitted. Wow. Geesh, back then they were still quite complex. Once they compared the possible vertebrate Anatopolis to a known arthropod fossil from the Milwaukee Public Museum, they realized that what looked like dentine-lined tubules of a vertebrate were more like the sensory organs on the shells of crabs called sensillae. Sensiae? Hmm. This means that Anatopolis, which was claimed to be a vertebrate in the pages of Nature in 1996, is an ancient invertebrate arthropod instead. Yeah, Anatopolis, if this is who I'm thinking of, has been quite abused in certain paleo documentaries. They're just always eaten by any Eurypterid or cephalopod around. Um, Cephalopods meaning the arthrocones, but there are a variety of different. Um, wait a second. Oh, was hold on. I think I'm confusing it for. confusing for something else? Okay, let's just keep going. The large tubules in another Ordovician vertebrate called Eryptychus were similar in structure to the sensilae, but did contain dentine. CT scan of the front of a skate, showing the hard, tooth-like denticles on its skin, shown in orange. This shows us that teeth can also be sensory even when they're not in the mouth, Hardy said. So there's sensitive armor in these fish. There's sensitive armor in these arthropods. This explains the confusion with these early Cambrian animals. People thought this was the earliest vertebrates, but it actually was an arthropod. Sharks, skates, and catfish also have tooth like structures called denticles that make their skin feel like sandpaper. When Hardy studied the tissues of her catfish, she saw that the denticles were connected to nerves, just like a tooth would be. Um, Stingrays are sharks. They have quite smooth skin, but for many other species. She said the similarities to teeth, the ancient odontodes of armored fish, and the sensilla of arthropods were striking. We think that the earliest vertebrates, these big armored fish, had very similar structures, at least morphologically. They look the same in ancient and modern arthropods because they're all making this mineralized layer that caps their soft tissue and helps them sense the environment, she said. CT scan of a whole bamboo shark, showing the hard, tooth like denticles on its skin shown in red. Hmm. There are two schools of thought about how these structures eventually became teeth. One, the inside out hypothesis, says that teeth arose first and were later adapted for exoskeletons. This paper would support the second outside in hypothesis that says sensitive structures developed first on exoskeletons, and at some point, animals utilize the same genetic toolkit to produce sensitive teeth as well. While they didn't pin down the earliest vertebrate fish, Shubin said this discovery was more than worth the effort. Oh. For some of these fossils that were putative early vertebrates, we showed that they're not. But this was a bit of misdirection, Chupin said. We didn't find the earliest one, but in some ways we found something way cooler. Okay, let me know what your thoughts are on these Cambrian fish or arthropods. And thank you for joining Creature Guide Live. I'm exhausted because I need a break from the Ordovician and the Cambrian, Silurian. I like them. I just um they're not my favorite part of the Phanerozoic era. Okay, our final article from outdoors.com. What do we have here? Rare footage shows snow leopard and Himalayan brown bear. No way. Are these in the same image? No. What's rarer than spotting a wild snow leopard? How about spotting a wild snow leopard and a Himalayan brown bear in the same frame? Of course, this could only happen in the Himalayas. Amur Jaspa is the wildlife photographer who captured the video and shared it to Instagram, calling it a rare moment. The footage shows a snow leopard skirting the edge of a cliff. It paces and keeps a wary eye on the brown bear. The bear seems to know the leopard is in the vicinity, but its behavior suggests it doesn't know exactly where, likely thanks to the leopard's superb camouflage. Watch what happens when a snow leopard and a Himalayan brown bear end up in the same territory here. They have video of it? No. Oh my gosh, they have video. No, I can't put it on full screen. Oh well. Okay, here's the leopard and here's the bear. Well, they're no, that bear's gotta know he's there. They have like one of the best senses of smell of any animal. Yeah, That is interesting. The leopard staying within the um, exposed rock because it's much more camouflaged with it at this point than compared to the snow. No, I think he knows that the leopard's there. He just doesn't care. Like, you're not going to eat me, you small cousin of the tiger. I don't fear you. You should fear me. I know that you roam 18,000 feet above sea level. It doesn't mean you're cooler. The two predators ultimately steer clear of each other. Another wildlife photographer tagged in the video who claims to have been there says in a comment to reply that the bear could smell the leopard but couldn't see it. Both animals hid themselves for a while and then went on their separate ways. I kind of wonder. Bears have pretty good. Brown bears have pretty good. They have decent vision, and usually in some situations, you would think that the animal can't see you, but it actually can. Black bears, their vision is not as keen. I think the same goes for both the American black bear and the Asiatic black bear. This is this is a very unique encounter with these two individuals. Um, well, that's it. I think in as a total, there's somewhere around 8 to 10,000 snow leopards in the wild, so they are quite rare. Many countries, their population estimates are also quite old, and it's a bit of a guess. Like, it's based on like a few individuals, kind of like with what we saw with the Leshwe, but not to that extreme. It's like 10 individuals, and okay, there could be 1,000 here. That was insane. Um, the Himalayan brown bears, though, are much more numerous, at least within that specific range of their subspecies. We don't know, though. Did it say where specifically this occurred? It just said that it was spotted in the Himalayas. Like, that's specific. You could be talking about anywhere in parts of um, Pakistan, or if you're venturing over into some of the more southern edges of Kyrgyzstan or the eastern edges of, was it Tajikistan, and then part of Nepal and even the very edge of southern China. So we don't know exactly where this took place. Oh, it says mammals of India. That's still not specific. Okay. Let me know what your thoughts are on the Himalayan brown bear and snow leopard uh, occurrence in the comments. That's going to be it for the animal news of the day. You can catch new episodes, or you can catch new episodes throughout the day at Creature Guide Live on Rumble and YouTube. Remember to like, comment, and if you love talking about animals, share this show with everyone you know, because nothing is better than all animals all the time.